Okay, so this is going to be another Pyraminx tutorial, not for a method. This is going to have to do with the keyhole method as well. This was requested by Howie Craig, so here you go. I hope this helps. Like I said, this isn't a tutorial. This is more of a tips and tricks video, but only for the keyhole method. And if requested, I will do tutorials for some other methods later as well. So the first thing that that I was asked to do, sorry, checking my phone. Okay, he said, I can't do an effective inspection because I have bad look ahead on the Pyraminx. How can this be fixed? Okay, so look ahead on Pyraminx is obviously pretty important, as it is on any puzzle. You're given 15 seconds, if you didn't know that, and for somebody who uses multiple methods, 15 seconds is not always enough, but if you're practicing one method and you're mainly using Keyhole, then I think 15 seconds should suffice. Generally, the first thing I look for when I get a scrambled Pyraminx, I look for solved edges, which is something hopefully most people look for. As far as effective inspection goes, you're probably not going to be one-looking the solve, but in a case like this, you can quickly see sides that have potential. That's the first thing I would look for, after solved edges, of course. This piece right here can go right here, and with one move. So that's easy to predict where this piece and this piece are going to end up if those pieces were to be important, which this one is. So with look ahead, it's as easy as just moving one piece up, and you don't even have to move anything yet, obviously. But in the process of this, just from the inspection, I can see that I'm going to turn this tip, move this piece here, and then move this piece here in 3 moves. That's pretty simple. Simple things like that are easy to do with the inspection. When you get more advanced, then you'll pick up on things yourself, but that's a good place to start. As for the next part, and this is assuming that you already know how to use the method, once you've solved your 2 edges and solved the centers on the bottom, and you have your keyhole open, there are I believe 4 different positions of this last edge. Oh, I'm sorry, I think there are actually 6 cases. They're all really similar, but I will go through all of them. It's not something I've actually practiced or even paid attention to, but if you need help, then I will explain it intuitively. There are no algorithms. So the first case would be when the edge is right underneath the keyhole and matches the side that it's on. So obviously there's no way to just bring this piece up because you're still going to mess up these centers. What you want to do is you turn the top layer so that the color that's on the bottom of this last edge is matching the side or the center of the top layer of the side you just turned. And once you've done that, you're going to want to pull this edge up into this solved edge, and don't worry, that's just going to push this edge over here and it'll be safe. So you can push this over here, and now you can bring your keyhole down, and then after your keyhole is down here, you can put this edge back into the place where you started, but now it's in the keyhole, and since we have to realign the keyhole, that'll put this center back on the bottom, and it'll bring this edge up, and then you can just realign the top layer. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know a better way to explain it. It really just comes with practice, and maybe there's another way to do it that I'm just not aware of, but I've gotten pretty fast doing it that way. Another really nasty case is when you've solved your 2 edges, solved the centers on the bottom, but you get this piece that's supposed to be in the keyhole flipped over. This is bad for several reasons. One, because the centers are already solved, you have no way of flipping this over except doing the 2-flip algorithm. So you can avoid this in inspection, but if you're inspecting quickly and you happen to come across this, obviously you're going to have to deal with it. So what you do is you turn it, assuming that these edges on the bottom layer are unsolved. Use one of the adjacent edges, and you can force better cases like this if you know how to look ahead into your last layer, but you can just use, say, this edge and this edge. You want to position them like you would in the 2-flip algorithm, and then you just do the 2-flip. And obviously that'll flip this edge and this edge. So that'll solve the top, and then you can just go straight into a last layer. I might have lied with the number of cases that there are. I don't know how many there are, but I'm just going to show them on this side, and then that should be able to be transposed, I guess, onto this side. It's the same thing, it's just with the opposite hands. It should be pretty easy to pick up. Anyway, the next case that I'm going to show you is when, again, the 2 edges are solved, your centers are solved, and the piece that needs to go into the keyhole is right here, but this color isn't matching this face. It's flipped. So the color on the bottom is already matching this face. Like I said, you need to set up in that other case, which means that you can just go straight into this by putting this piece adjacent to the keyhole, bringing the keyhole down so that you can bring this piece down into the keyhole and then realign your center, and that'll solve the top layer, and you don't need to move the U layer at all. Yeah, again, so completely ignore the number of cases I said there were. I really don't know, and I'm kind of lazy to count them. But I think this is the last one. This is the one, I don't know if this is the worst. I just don't like Keyhole. I really don't use it, but again, Keyhole and your last layer edges should be scrambled or something. The piece is over here in the front, in between the 2 solved edges that you solved in the beginning. And there are 2 ways this could be positioned, this way or the opposite. And this one's bad, I think, because it involves moving the top layer, and you don't want to move the top layer once it's there. But anyway, this is going to be similar to the other case. You just turn the top layer so that the color that's on the bottom is on the front face, and then you do the same thing by hiding the piece, bringing the keyhole down, putting the piece in the keyhole, bringing the piece back up, and then realigning the U layer. I think it's all intuitive, but at least if I explain it and vaguely how to do it, then it might be more helpful. Okay, and the last thing I was asked was, I would like to know how to recognize the last layer cases very quickly. How could I start? Okay, I will go through all of the last layer cases now, and I'm going to show them on the yellow face, just so you know what it is I'm doing. Okay, so the first one, let's start with the 2-flip because it's the easiest. This one's really, really fast to recognize, and if you're not into rotating, and like you can get the 2-flip like this, and there's a different algorithm for it. I mean, they're all basically the same, but just different combinations of moves. But for the sake of this video and saving some time, I'm gonna place it like this so that they're horizontal. So this one's really easy and quick to recognize, because it's the only one where there's going to be a flipped edge. So if you even see the one flipped edge, then you know the other one is, and you can just quickly do the algorithm. This one's also very quick to recognize. I'm actually not entirely sure how I always recognize these cases, but it's when you have one edge unsolved but oriented correctly, and then 2 unsolved. Yeah, so it's going to be positioned like this, so that these 2 unsolved edges are on the left side, and the left slot in the bottom. And I see that this is the color of the face of the last layer, and this doesn't match this or this, which means I know it's on the bottom, which means I know that it's a sledge case, which is just this. And I think that's pretty easy too. Now obviously the opposite of that, if you had it positioned like this, then this matches this. So what you can do is just flip it over so that this doesn't match anything except for the bottom, which is what we want. And that's, again, these are all very easy to recognize, I think, but not knowing where to start must be fairly frustrating. So yeah, green, this is blue, this is red, green must be on the bottom, or you can just glance at the bottom. It won't slow you down too much at first, and then just sludge. And these last two cases, I really hate. Oh, actually, before I move on from the last case, that case can be executed from a ton of different angles, none of which I think are faster than what I showed you. So for now, you can just rotate and solve the way I did. But again, these last two cases is when the entire face is oriented, but you have a 3-cycle. So this doesn't matter which way you hold it from, because the cycle's always going to have to go in this either a counterclockwise or clockwise direction, and rotating clockwise or counterclockwise won't change that. You can see, again, I look at these two top pieces. I usually don't glance at the bottom, because you can tell what the bottom is by looking everywhere else. So I see that this piece needs to go this way, which means we have a counterclockwise cycle. And I do the sledge from I can just go straight into that and then insert this. Same thing for the other side. I see that this needs to go over here, so I do the sledge from this side and then insert. Those were all of the things that were asked for me, that I was asked to show. I hope they were helpful. And I mean, they're a little hard to explain, especially on the spot when I don't really have anything prepared. It's easier to explain on one-on-one, obviously, but I do hope those were helpful. And if there are any questions, private messages and comments, I answer all of them, every single one. So don't be afraid to ask.